It's actually signed by Thomas Jefferson. He was president at the time, and it lays out the section and the area and things, and it's also signed by James Madison, Secretary of State at that time. So this will be up here if you'd like to look at it. During his lifetime, Peter Raub utilized his last name as Raab. So it's I've seen various variations. Raab is another variation of that. Another interesting fact about Peter Raub is he kept his language, which is the same as what the Amish speak, Low German. So that was kept in my grandfather's generation. So my grandfather and his siblings and other extended family, when they went to the family reunion, they all spoke in German. And my father hated history, and he hated going to reunions because he couldn't understand what they were saying. So, like kids at that age and things, some of you may know Don Cyrus and that punk, they were the same age. And they hung out together during the reunions, and they probably got into trouble, but he never would comment about that. But my love for history didn't come from him, because I'd ask him about it, because we'd drive through to Middletown. He said, yeah, you got some relatives over there. I said, well, let's go visit them. He's like, that's history. So you drive on by. So what got me started is my daughter was born. I had Aunt Emma Bond, she was my aunt. She was a historian for the Raub reunion for a number of years, and I started asking her some questions and things. I saw a woman had died recently, a man had died recently, and his mother was Olive Raub Hewitt, and so that got me interested in the mid-90s. And so I continued on with that, and here I am today. So I'll start off with reading a few things. My grandfather wrote this in 1930. A little penny tablet. It was actually smaller, and I blew it up so I could read it and things. But it's all in his handwriting. Again, he wrote it in 1930. It was found when they were tearing down my Aunt Emma Raub Bond's house. The friends of mine that were tearing it down, they saw it and they sent it to me. But a lot of interesting history here. And it talks about in 1802, they landed in the Springfield Township, Mahoning County area near New Middletown. So if you're familiar with New Middletown, about the eastern portion of it all fell in that lot that Peter Raub bought. Excuse me. So with a team of oxen, 2 milk cows, and 2 horses, they also tied a butter churn to the wagon so it was swinging while they were driving along, so they'd make butter while they were riding along in the wagon. And a fellow named, I can't think of his first name right now, but he went by Red Boland. He actually had the lantern that hung off of the wagon. It wasn't a Conestoga wagon, but it was a wagon that they came in. And then Wilson Raub, he's going back through some of the people there. Wilson would be my great-grandfather, so my grandfather is Walter Raub. I'm named after him, so I'm actually the second. And then Wilson Raub, his father was Henry or Heinrich Raub, and then his grandfather, so it would have been George John. So it'd be Wilson, his father was George John Raub, then Henry or Heinrich Raub, he was actually born in Pennsylvania, then Peter Raub. Peter Raub was born approximately 1734 to 1735 in Pennsylvania. Not a lot of information about him. I'd like to know who his parents are. I have not found that information. I'm still looking. I'm retired now, so hopefully I'll get into eastern Pennsylvania and look up that information. It could have been, actually is a town that still exists on the Delaware River. It's Robsville. And supposedly, according to my second cousin Brian Raub, he's since deceased, but he says that when you look at George Washington crossing the Delaware, that was in a Raub boat. In Robsville, they had a ferry. And in order to cross the Delaware, they were looking for all the boats that they could get. And there was a Raub's ferry there, and it could be a Raub boat. So it does make it interesting. Could it happen? Yeah, it could be. Did it happen? I don't know. It's up to you. So, they came over from Germany. They kept that German language for over 200 years. So down to my grandfather's generation, they kept that language through that entire time period. Dual language and things. About the time of World War I, it became rather unpopular to speak a second language, so it kind of died out. my family was a little more stark in the languages because my grandfather spoke Low German, Amish. My grandmother spoke High German. And there's enough differences that they couldn't agree on which one to teach the children, so they got nothing. So, Henry Raub, he married Catherine Fink. Peter Raub actually had at least 2 marriages. His first marriage was to Maria. She died in 1816. And let's see, when she died, they had a piece in the newspaper. Okay, no, she died January 5th, 1816. He married his second wife, Elizabeth Shoemaker, on May 9th, 1816. The newspaper report lists Peter's age is 81 and Elizabeth's age is 78. Peter Raub's, and this is a quote, Peter Raub's first wife died 4 months and 4 days previous to his last marriage. What a shame for both. At 81 years old, you find a woman to marry, I say go for it. Even if it's 4 months and 4 days. Peter did reside, Peter Raub resided in Windsor Township, York County, Pennsylvania, from at least 1779 until the time of his move in 1802. And the records I've seen, it does list his residence as York County, Pennsylvania. Land records and tax lists show that Peter Raub was there in Windsor Township, York County, Pennsylvania. I've also seen, I haven't been there, but I've seen a picture of the house. The house actually still exists that he was in at that time. It passed down to his son, Peter Jr. He stayed, he didn't emigrate to Ohio. So I think there was a son and maybe 2 sons and a daughter that stayed in Pennsylvania. The rest did come over to Ohio. Some of them stayed here, some of them moved on. So there's a couple branches that they moved further west. Some around Bowling Green, Ohio, and another area of Ohio, I forget which, but we've got relatives around the state of Ohio. So the section that Peter bought, the 640 acres, was section 11, township 9, range 1. And I've given you the boundaries there. And evidence does strongly suggest that Peter Raub did serve in the Revolutionary War. There was a Windsor Township, York County Peter Raub, but it was spelled R-O-B-B. But again, the last name spelling wasn't as important back at that time, so it wasn't unusual to have various spellings. He had 10 children. He had Catherine, Magdalena, John, Peter, George, Nancy, Sarah, Barbara, Heinrich, and Mary. Nancy and Sarah may have died young because I've found no other information on them. When Peter moved here, he was near 70 years old, and he was a Ohio pioneer because he settled here before Ohio became a state in 1803. Some of the other children, John, Barbara, Heinrich, and Mary, moved along with their families, and so he had some son-in-laws, Conrad Meyer, Peter Benedict. They worked together, so Peter, his son Heinrich, Conrad Meyer, Peter Benedict built the log church, the Reformed Lutheran church that's commonly known as the old Springfield Church. So in 1804, they built that church. Peter Raub was also a deacon, an elder or deacon in that church, and Henry served in that church as well. They are buried in that cemetery ground. I don't have the reference for it, but I've seen it where I think when South Range Road was moved, they had to move some of the graves, and this was probably in the 1930s or 40s, and they had to move the casket, and they did see Peter Raub's bones in there, and as I understand, this is recollection, so don't quote me on this, but they believe he was in a military uniform, so he was buried in his military uniform. Peter Raub's grave, it is a replacement stone. The original stone would have been in sandstone. So it was in very, very poor condition, as they often were, some of those early stones. And it was replaced from the Veterans Administration with kind of a standard marble stone. So, and the people that replaced it, they used the ROBB name. So you'll find that stone with Peter, ROBB. Again, it should be RAAB. I've come across some other people, some George Raubs in Detroit, Michigan area. And the research that he did, he found the change in name occurred about the 1830s. So the RAAB group got together with an RAUB group in Northern Ohio, and they changed the name spelling to RAUB. So Heinrich went by RAAB, his son George John went by RAUB. And again, if you want to research those stones, you can go to the cemetery and you can see them there. So I'll take a break here or stop as far as anybody have any questions. So yeah.
You said he donated land in New Middletown.
Yes, sir. That's the family history. Was there was a little sliver of section that's now Welker Park that was left over that was donated by the Raubs to the city of New Middletown.
So they must have bought the next 640 acres. And if the original ended at Raab Road.
No, this is the west side. So the west, the east side is Rapp Road. They didn't have the piece. He didn't have the piece between Rapp Road and the state line. That was Conrad Myers.
Oh, okay.
So he had the section that is about half of the Middletown. Yeah, Rapp Road West.
Okay.
So a little bit west of 170 is the boundary line between Lot 11 and I forget which way it goes. Probably Lot 12.
I believe it's Struthers Road and 170. That intersection, I believe.
It's close. It's actually a little bit west.
Yeah.
From what I was looking at the maps back there, and it looks like it's just a little bit west of that intersection. And so Welker Park would fit just right in there, just about perfect.
Yeah, Struthers Road wasn't there in 1802.
Yeah. There was just some Indian paths through there.
Just saying.
Yeah. Point well taken. But it's kind of interesting. I've done a lot of research in the local government offices. I found Peter Raub's will, and that was 1827. I don't have an exact death date for Peter Raub, but his probate showed up in September of 1827. And so got some interesting information from that. So last will and testament of Peter Raub. In the name of God, amen. I, Peter Raub of Springfield Township, Columbiana County, in the state of Ohio, being in good health of body and sound and disposing mind and memory, praise be God for the same, and being desirous to settle my worldly affairs, whilst I have strength and capacity to do so, make and publish this, my last will and testament, hereby revoking and void all wills by me at any time heretofore made. And then he talks about, he's made by his creator and things, and he takes care of his funeral expenses. He names his children, and wills some of the lots and things. $150, so he willed $150 to each of his children. And, it seems like a minor sum today, but it was a big sum back then. And then he also, he named his executors, Conrad Myers, son-in-law, and Henry Raub, RAAB, his son. And then this was dated 26th day of June, 1827, so a few months later he had passed away. Don't see his second wife listed there, which would have been Elizabeth, so I don't know if she was living at that time or not. Yeah, question in the back.
The church that they built, is that the church that was torn down?
Yeah, the original log church would have been torn down, and they built, it was called the Twin Churches for a period of time.
Yeah.
And also Old Springfield Church. So yeah, there's actually there's a window there dedicated to my great uncle, Otto Raub. He had passed away, he was about 2 years old. So my grandfather and his siblings attended the church at that time. They lived at a place on Rapp Road. So there was a place there, it was part of the original section, 640 acres. And he had bought that. My grandfather grew up there until his mother passed away. His mother passed away about 1902. He was born in 1886. His mother, Emma Blackburn Raub, she passed away in her 40s in 1902. And so Wilson Raub, my great-grandfather, he took all the children and they settled in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania. His brother, Wilson Raub's brother, William Henry Raub, had been in Edinburgh for quite some time. So he came over there, and then that's where my father was born. That's where my grandfather passed away. So I've got strong ties to the Edinburgh area. That's where I'm relocating to from near Columbus, Ohio. I have my house up for sale now, and I bought the family farm. My grandfather bought that farm, and the first part of it he bought in 1911. The main farm he bought in 1933, and it's been in the family since. So interesting. It's since the 1860s. I think I'm the fourth owner of the farm there. So interesting history. Yeah.
Did your family have anything to do with actually starting Middletown, or?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've wondered that, but I honestly don't know if they were what involvement they had, if any, in the starting of New Middletown. So I'm sorry, I don't know the answer.
But their
to that
property is part of Middletown.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the eastern section. So yeah, just a little bit west of where 170 and Struthers Road meet to Rapp Road, that was the original 640 acres. So anything east of that would be part of that section. And so I've looked in the map there and other maps, and so almost half of Middletown would have fallen in that portion of the property. So, but
Now,
that
after
would
he
have happened.
passed away, did they start selling off on land, or?
They actually, before he passed away, he divided it in half between a couple of the children, and then it got sold off. And right now, depends on where your house is, you might fall into that section.
Yeah.
But you'd be about the only one that would be a descendant that's living in part of that original property.
Rex is on the other side.
He's on the wrong side. Yeah, he's on the wrong side of Middletown
But
Road. Yeah.
I don't know, when did the first Cyrus marry Rob?
Oh, probably Elma May, when she married Grover Cyrus. That'd be Charlie Cyrus's daughter. That'd be the first Cyrus, I think.
When I was a kid, just about everybody on the south side of Middletown Road were Cyrus's or cousins or
Yeah.
married Cyrus.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah, roots run deep here. Any other good questions? You have good questions. Any other questions? Yeah, Mary.
How did you spell Conrad Myers' last name? Is it M-Y-E-R-S?
I'll have to look because I know there's several different spellings. Here it's spelled M-Y-E-R-S.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
then Conrad Myers bought two sections of land. He bought the one next to Peter Raub, which is between Rapp Road and the state line. He also bought the next section north. So he had a pretty good chunk of land. He had 1,280 acres. And as usual, I mean, need some money or somebody wants some land to sell it off and things, so it got smaller and smaller. But I see the 1860 map back there. There was a couple of Raubs. Henry Raub had the section there, and there were some others. There was also some of the siblings. There's a Daniel Raub in there. That was an interesting situation. When Daniel Raub passed away, his wife lived for a number of years, and her information is in the probate for the wills. It went on for like 20 more years. So they had to account for that because it was coming out of the estate. And so you don't see that too much nowadays, but back in that day, that was pretty common to take care of your widow through the estate. Also, there was life estates as well. So if the wife didn't remarry, then she would stay on the estate. Again, they would pay the taxes, and then at the time of her deceased, then they would sell it. Also, surprisingly, it was very common back in the 1800s that when the man passed away, everything went up for sale. You know, it wasn't always real common just to give everything to the wife. They actually had a sale and put everything in the household up for sale. I mean, it's good in one sense because you got a very good inventory of what was in the house. As far as one of the relatives I saw, they had a lot of German books, a lot of cookware. They had a full inventory of whatever was in the barn. So pretty good snapshot of what they owned and what they had at that particular time. So it's amazing how much information is there. It takes some digging. You got to go through courthouses and things. Now it's getting a little harder as far as I was actually seeing some of the original records, but you know, being 200 years old now, they are getting very fragile. And they don't like you handling things like that. But if you can still get a good copy of it, it's still worthwhile, especially if you're looking for relatives and things, because that's how I found some of the other relatives, where they were listed in the wills or showed up in probate. Okay. Oh, another thing was kind of interesting on this warrant patent for the original land. They also gave the year. They gave the year, 18,808, and also in the time from independence of the United States. So it was the 32nd year after 1776. So they were actually keeping track of it at that particular time. Going back to kind of how life was back at that time, in my grandfather's time, he was talking about where they came from over the Blue Ridge Mountains. I always associated the Blue Ridge Mountains with Virginia and that area, but they're actually, the Blue Ridge Mountains do extend up into eastern Pennsylvania. So the area around Philadelphia, eastern area, there is a part of the Blue Ridge Mountains up there, and so learn some things. The homestead that is on Garden Center Road at the very end, it was built approximately 1860, the current house that's there. I did have an opportunity with Mabel Yeager, Don Cyrus, to the acquaintances were owners of the house at that particular time, about 25, 30 years ago. They let us go
They're
inside.
Still there.
Still there, okay, good. They actually had an area where it wasn't remodeled. They had a closet they opened up, and you could still see the beam and peg construction. It didn't have nails for the original structure. And it replaced the log cabin that was built probably in 1802 or 1803. And Mabel knew where that site was. She pointed back there. She said, yeah, it was back there. It's totally gone now. But that was, that original homestead site. My grandfather talked about 2 old pear trees that were put there. And then he later on, I forget who it is, but he said who planted them. When they landed there, they built a log cabin of 1 room with round logs. They put in a fireplace to cook. So could these be some of those things? I don't know. They could be. Mary brought them, so this could be some of the cookware that they utilized, because there was no stoves. At that time, the fireplace was over 6 feet wide, where kettles were hung to do the cooking, and to make the fire, they struck flintstone to gather on punk. So everybody know what punk is? Some of the old timers are nodding their head. The younger ones probably don't know, but it's old rotten wood basically, or the center out of some old wood. It catches fire very easily. So you put it out there, and they'd use a flint and a piece of steel and make sparks, and they'd light the punk, and then from there they'd start the kitchen fire.
Maybe that's where Punk Cyrus got his nickname.
Probably, it means a firebug. Yeah. Don't know, never did hear why he got it, or maybe he was just a punk, I don't know. So they didn't have matches at that time. Let's see. Henry Raub Jr., Susanna Raub planted the 2 big pear trees. Okay, so that would have been, Susanna Raub was a Snyder. So she was a daughter of Michael Snyder and Eva Musser. So I did look back, and it's not the Peter Musser that I believe Petersburg's named after. Could be a relative, but
It's his mother, I think.
I'm sorry.
I think it was his mother.
No, it wouldn't have been his mother. No, because see, Susanna Raab was born 1825, her mother Eva was born about 1800, so I don't think I don't think that'll match up. So, yeah, because a lot of names are common, and it does get confusing, because I've run into it where I got like a group of Mussers, and then I got a group of Snyders, and you can almost match up the names as far as they'll have John and Eva and Michael and others, so they kind of, names were popular back then, so they named their children about the same time with the same names. So Uncle Charlie, he was the last of the 10 that started the reunion in 1895. So there was 10 siblings of the Raubs that started the reunion in 1895. I got a newspaper clipping of 1896 where there was over 600 people who attended. Yeah, there was that many relatives that were in the area around New Middletown and things that attended. And then the next year was about 600 as well. Then it's still going on, so
We're lucky to get 20.
yeah. So this year it'll be, I believe it's July 13th, so that's Uncle Charlie's birth date. That's since he was the last living one. He died about 1941. They've kept the tradition to keep it the closest Sunday in July to his birthday. So this year it happens to be the same date.
How many years is it, 140 now?
130.
A reunion?
Yeah, the reunion it was 1895, so the first one was, 1, and then, or maybe it's 131, so.
Well, what's it say on that sheet?
Well, 128, this is 2023, so.
It'll be
Okay.
130,
130th.
130 years of family reunions.
Yeah, we even had it during COVID, so we kept it going, trying to keep the streak.
How many people show up now?
Now we're getting about 15 to 20, so. But the 100th one in 1995, I think we had about 60 or 70 people that came at that particular time. So if you know anybody that's related, like to come, sure, we're welcome. So my grandfather wrote down a lot of names here, some different relatives and that. And some of this was incorrect, because he thought Peter Raub got the land for clearing it off and farming it, which was incorrect. There were some lands that were gained that way. So a little more, he did give some other things here, okay. All the clothing they had were made from themselves, from the flax that they raised on the land. They got wool from the sheep to make the wool clothing. The shoes are made of wood. Mr. Buzzard made the first shoes from leather in that section of the country. When you want shoes, you went and had your feet measured, and shoes and boots were made to order. Wooden plows were used to stir up the ground. Okay, to make a light in your house, a piece of rag was laid in a saucer of lard. The saucers were made from fire clay and baked at a wood fire until they were hard. Also, crock jugs and bowls and troughs were hewn out from wood, and chairs and tables are made from planks and pieces of logs, hewn out of logs. So, life wasn't too easy back then when they first came, because a lot of it was they settled in, they had what they brought with them, and utilized the logs, utilized a lot of the land, raised the trees. Peter Raub was a farmer and a carpenter. Saw some information, showed he did do some carpentry and things, and most of his children were mostly farmers and that, so that carried on for a number of generations. Then things changed as time went on, as the Middletown grew and developed, and other jobs came along and things. But a lot of the people did stay around, and some of them did move. There were some that went up in the Detroit area. I've got some distant relatives that I've written back out in the Grape area in California. So there's a woman out there, she's a descendant. There's another one in Oklahoma that I've written to. The Snyder side of it, Gladys Donson, she's from the Snyder side of with Susanna and things, so she had quite a bit of extensive information. And she did a lot of research. She actually went to France and maybe even Switzerland, but she tracked back the Mussers back to Switzerland in the 1650s. So, I don't think I'll be able to go back that far, but it is tempting to go back. I have been to Germany. Promised my daughter when she graduated high school that we would go to a trip to Europe, so I had an opportunity to go to Germany, Austria, and Paris. I liked Germany, I liked Austria, I didn't like Paris. So interesting, but I'll probably let it go at that. So there's another question there.
The original Raab property,
Yes,
did
sir.
the Raabs own it when they started designing cemetery?
I don't think they did at that time. So that might have been one of the sections, because one of the son-in-laws I think that was the one, the son-in-law got that section. And was it the Millers later that gave that property to start design cemetery?
Okay, second question, the Raabs and the Stacys, Hugh Stacy, where was the connection there that they were related?
I don't know that one, so I'm sorry, I don't know.
I'm thinking it could be through Jacob Nice. I think it could be through Jacob Nice. Stacy's do go back to the Nice.
Okay. Not familiar with those. Through the information I've dug back through, I don't have a tie there, so. But if you got some specific information or things, I do have my genealogical stuff here somewhere. Oh, it's one that fell down. So, but I do have some things, and we can look back there and see if we can find a tie. But I have been gathering information for, like I said, 30 years, and I have had a lot of requests and that in the past, not recently, but I have in the past, and been able to make some connections, some I couldn't. Another one was kind of interesting. There is a group that they go by RAUB, RAUP, and they have a lot of documented evidence of their bloodlines and things back through, and they go back to 1732 to a ship called the Loyal Judith. And Hans George Raab, he actually signed his name legibly. You could read it and things. I have done some DNA, so independent of each other, a very distant cousin of mine and we did our DNA, and ours came back. Our common ancestor goes back 200 years, and our DNA, out of 63 markers, 61 matched exactly. So we are 100% related. We knew we were through it, our genealogical stuff, but that was the icing on the cake. We are definitely related. The guy that started the project on the DNA, his didn't match. He couldn't do it because he had a female ancestor in there, but he had a male ancestor, it didn't match. So it kind of set things back because he got disgusted. He didn't do anything for about 10 years. So now he's got started back again. So that RAUP line, somebody did their DNA ancestry, and it doesn't match. So unfortunately, I was hoping there'd be a match so we could go back to that, but it doesn't match. So that makes, they would be part of a different line. So I'll have to start from scratch to find out who Peter's ancestors are. If I can find out, I'll try. There's been a lot of people been looking for many years. Peter Raab has been accepted in the DAR, Daughters of American Revolution. He does have a line there, and I've got several other ancestors that are also have served in the Revolutionary War, and but my daughter wasn't interested in joining DAR. So common problem nowadays is what I'm hearing. Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
Keith Raab was a classmate of my high school classmate of 72. Is he a relative?
Yes. Yeah, that would be probably through Elmer Raab.
Wayne.
Wayne, yeah, okay, yeah, definitely a relative. I think they come under Samuel Raub's line, so yeah, same as your mother. So, yeah, interesting history there. Let's see, where are they buried at? Are they buried in Zion? I can't remember. So, yeah, a lot of stuff. I got a lot of stuff here in my head. I'm able to pull a lot of it out, but it's kind of rusty because I haven't used it for a while. Yeah,
Does your family own any of the property now that was in that section?
just them.
Just one?
Yeah, the house there, and I think falls within that 640 acres. That's the only one. The rest of them, they all sold out eventually.
Well,
So
I don't know, tell them I'll give them $4 an acre if they're,
there you go, double your money.
yeah, double your money.
Yeah. So,
Sounds like Yellowstone.
all right. So, no other questions. Thank you for your time and attention, and I'll hang around.